Hi, I'm Laura.
And I'm Steve.
We're a recently retired couple who love to travel, so we flew.
If this is your first time on our channel, we've retired, we've sold, or donated everything we own, and we're traveling to see our bucket list items.
We're making these videos of our travels so our kids, friends, and anyone else who is interested can follow along. We spent a week in Athens. We learned to pace ourselves by this time. We stayed in a hotel apartment, which gave us the freedom to visit sites, fix our own meals, do laundry, and was certainly centrally located to most of the sites we wanted to see. After a week on a cruise ship and the small hotel rooms we had in Italy, this place felt huge.
The train system in Athens is easy to learn, though the language is a little daunting since not all of the letters correspond to our letters. But we found our phones could get us around fairly easily.
So we started off by watching the changing of the guards at Syntagma Square. This is done by the Presidential Guard, known as the Evzone, which occurs every day. They do this every day, but on Sundays, which is the day that we were there, there's a band and a parade, and of course, lots of crowds. But it was really cool to see the precision with that the soldiers marched in their uniforms and just kind of the whole feel of the changing of the guard.
The Acropolis in Athens is kind of the one thing you see from a distance. It's the defining characteristic of Athens. It dominates the skyline. It beckons to the traveler. We could see it from various vantage points around the city, and we'd often try and stop, and try to imagine what it might be like viewing it as an ancient visitor to the city. It's an incredible view now. It must have just been stunning in those ancient days, that huge temple set up on a hill. It's a hike to get to the top, but it offers amazing views as you climb to the top. And if the weather is warm, it's best to do it in the morning or late afternoon when things start to cool off.
The metro system will get you partway up that hill, but the rest has to be done on foot. Rather than get a guided tour, we decided this time to use the Rick Steves app, his Audio Europe, to guide us around. We found this a great way to see the ancient marvel, and we liked that we could start and stop it when we wished.
Acropolis is a generic term. There are many acropolis or acropoli in Greece. The word means the highest point or extremity. This one is famous because, of course, of the remains of the ancient buildings. The most famous is the Parthenon, a large temple to the gods. Nearby the Acropolis is Mars Hill, where the Apostle Paul preached to the Greeks. While I was there on top of Mars Hill, there was a preacher who was there filming a missionary message. When the Mycenaeans ruled the area around 1400 BC, they built their palace there on top of the Acropolis, and by 800 BC the Athenians were building their temples to their gods there, especially Athena, the patron goddess of Athens.
In 480 BC, the Persians invaded Greece. The Athenians evacuated and burned all the temples atop the Acropolis to the ground. It wasn't for several more generations before the complex was rebuilt. There's a 5,000-seat amphitheater that is still in use today.
The Propylaea is the gate that visitors would enter. It was massive, and to get to the main portion of the complex, you have to enter the same way the ancients did, although the steps have been covered with newer steps. Once on top, you can see the Parthenon and the Temple of Athena Nike and the Erechtheion. There are still columns there carved like women on the Erechtheion, however they are copies. The originals are in the Acropolis Museum and in the British Museum in London, and at least one in Paris. There also once was a statue of Athena that was so tall, the top of her spear could be seen by ships on the coast 30 miles away.
There's a cool story that occurred during the Nazi occupation of Athens. There's a retaining wall at the north end of the Acropolis where a very large Greek flag flies. It's been there for since pre-Nazi occupation time. This is a great place to go to get amazing views of Athens. So we learned that the stripes on the Greek flag were thought to symbolize the 9 syllables of the Greek phrase meaning freedom or death, and the story kind of corresponds with that. In April of 1941, the Nazi soldiers confronted a soldier who was guarding the flag. He was part of that elite squad of the infantry, the Zone, that we saw marching, doing the changing of the guards. And the Nazis told this soldier that he was to take down the flag. He took it down, he wrapped it around himself, and he jumped over the cliff to his death. A Nazi flag was then flown in its place. But about a month later, 2 heroic teenagers scaled that wall, took down the Nazi flag, and replaced it with the Greek flag. This is one of the first known acts of the resistance against the Nazis, and there's a plaque honoring the boys' bravery. The flag can be seen from just about anywhere in Athens.
The Agora is where the Greeks would shop and meet with each other. One can walk around the field where the Agora stood, and the main plaza there has been rebuilt and houses a museum and the American University. The museum displayed quite a bit regarding what life was like anciently, with displays on voting methods, especially the politics is interesting. There was one such method used for impeachment of a politician, where if enough citizens wrote the undesirable politician's name on a pottery shard, that politician had to withdraw from Athens for 10 years.
I can think of some politicians I'd like to forget about for 10 years. They had a simple clock for limiting a politician's speech. They had a number of democratic features that I wish still existed. They even had a barbecue grill showing that life wasn't much different than ours today. Not only was the Agora where the shopping took place, but it was where religious buildings and government buildings existed. The first synagogue was in this area, as well as some ancient Christian churches and Roman churches from their time of dominance. Another cool thing there were the columns. The lower parts of the columns are smooth to encourage people to lean against them as they visited with each other.
The National Archaeological Museum contains the Antikythera mechanism. This was a kind of a first computer that I geeked out about it. It apparently showed where the stars were and where the planets and the phases of the moon were, as well as predicting other events. There was also plenty of other things for everyone else. There were gold coins, there were masks. And pottery. And weapons, and statues, and art, as well as just a great description of how life evolved in Greece from the founding days through Greece's heyday. The other thing we noticed on the streets are the many shopping areas that are made of marble slabs, repurposed from the ancient monuments. They give the city a bit of class, being able to walk on marble streets.
The Acropolis Museum is another place that's absolutely worth a visit. The detail on the statues and the colors that can still be seen on the decorative stonework gives an idea of what the Acropolis must have looked like. And it's built over a part of the ancient city that you can walk above and see the intricacy of the houses and apartments that fell within the Acropolis above. It contains a sculpture of Alexander the Great, as well as other statues and pieces of art.
There are a lot of squares where people visit. Monastiriki Square is a beautiful square in the heart of the city where the youth gather, and there are many shops and restaurants, and it has quite an attractive nightlife. The Acropolis is within view, and there's something about having an evening meal on a rooftop restaurant, taking in the views of the city and the square below.
There are churches all over, some small. Most of them were Greek Orthodox, and a couple of things we learned about the Greek Orthodox religion is they don't believe in statues, but will have painted walls and stained glass. And they don't have seats within their church. They stand for their religious services, which can last up to a couple of hours, I believe. The Holy Metropolitan Church of the Annunciation of the Virgin Mary was a larger one, and it was the Metropolitan Cathedral of Athens.
The temple of Olympian Zeus was one of the larger temples in the ancient world and took over 700 years to complete. It was started by the Greeks but finished by the Romans under Emperor Hadrian. And one can see a few columns. They are still standing and some are on the ground, and you could just imagine the size of the completed temple. All throughout the town are examples of the ancient city still in existence.
As we were finishing up our trip and getting ready to go back, we did make one costly mistake as we were returning to the airport. We had purchased a week pass, and it looked like it would take us all the way to the airport. But if it didn't, we thought we'd have a chance to purchase a ticket and figured out there would be a way to do it. But at the end of the local metro line, we did have a chance to get off the train, and we actually waited for a little bit for the next train. However, there was no signage or anything that said that we needed to have a special ticket to get to the airport. So we boarded that train and headed to the airport with our week pass as our way to get there. And as we were exiting the metro station, there were a number of metro police checking the tickets. And we didn't have the correct one, so we had to pay a hefty fine on the spot in order to leave the station and head for the airport. So watch out for that when you're traveling there. Just realize that you have to pay a little extra to get to the airport.
We hope you liked our summary of Athens. If it's not on your bucket list, it should be. It is an amazing city, well worth going to. And it's just amazing to learn about the Greek civilization. We'd love to hear what you thought about Athens if you've been there in the past. So leave a comment. And if you liked what you saw, please like and subscribe to our channel. And as always,
Happy travels.